This is a Film Stories original podcast.
We made this.
Welcome to the Starlight Ballroom. Hey!
Hello and welcome to Shipwrecked and Comatose, the podcast about Red Dwarf on the We Made This podcast network. My name is Mark Adams and I am your host for this special episode in between series where we look at the Red Dwarf series themselves and we find tenuous links to talk about things that we want to talk about. And today's tenuous link is that Chris Barrie is in this film. We're looking at Tomb Raider, but I'm not on my own. With me at this time is my regular co-host, Carl Bryan. Hello, Carl.
Hello, Mark.
But we're not alone. We have been joined by a stalwart of the We Made This podcast network, someone who has made it his personal mission to guest on every single show on that network. It's Craig McKenzie. Hello, Craig.
Hello. I'm doing pretty well on this bingo card. There's only a few spaces left.
I know, right? You were on Chucky Vision with us a few months ago, and
yes,
that was fun. And I've done lots of other stuff with you, like Podcast 616 and a few others. But I'm trying to phrase this nicely, but all I've got is you get around, and that isn't nicely.
I once described myself as the John Barrowman of the network, but I don't think we're allowed to use that as a comparison anymore. But it was the idea that when he appears on something, then you can't get rid of him.
Well, honestly, I've always enjoyed podcasting with you on various different podcasts in the past, so it's lovely to have you on Shipwrecked and Comatose finally.
Great team.
And we've got a officer's exam that I probably should have warned you about, but if you've listened to the podcast before, you know what's coming. If you haven't, it'll be a nice surprise. So before we get into talking about Tomb Raider, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about your background on Red Dwarf. So the first question is, when did you discover Red Dwarf and what's your first memory of the show?
I discovered it many years ago. I remember I would watch it, I think it was on a Monday night on BBC One or BBC Two.
I think it was BBC Two, actually.
Yeah, but I watched it on there, and I think I was watching it, I don't know if it was when it was first run of the first season or they were just repeating it at the time, but that was where I started. And then I fell off it for a few years. I remember lost track of it, and then I came back when Red Dwarf 8 premiered, and then between various repeats on other channels and so on, I managed to catch up through everything eventually. So I've seen it all, and I do enjoy it. I think it's really good. I haven't actually seen any of all of the modern stuff, the Dave era stuff. I wasn't hugely into it when it came back, so I kind of fell off it again. So yeah, it's a bit of a strange relationship where I watched it for a bit and then didn't watch it for a long time and then watched it again.
So you're kind of like a casual fan who's dipped in and out?
Yeah, I think it was more an access thing though, because if it just wasn't on, then it was very difficult to watch.
They are all on the iPlayer now.
Yes, that was a recent thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, it depends when this goes out, doesn't it? All right, question number 2 is, what's your favourite episode? Do you have one?
I always like Backwards. That's the one I remember seeing most often, and I just think the people running backwards gimmick is very funny. I always enjoyed that one. Maybe it's just because I've seen that one more than others, but it sticks in the mind.
I mean, for the time, it was incredibly innovative, and it is an iconic episode. Is that a favourite of yours, Carl?
Backwards. I do enjoy Backwards in just that it was something I'd never seen before in TV. Yeah, I still enjoy Backwards. It's a nice one for me, that one. All
right. What is your favourite season of Red Dwarf, Craig?
Well, I don't know. Quite like the third one. I think that's where they really changed the show around, didn't they?
Yeah, that's the one with Backwards in as well.
Yeah. So probably the third one. I think that's the one that's possibly the best distillation of its concept, as in it's a bit more sci-fi. It's less... Well, it's more of a sitcom in its first 2 seasons, isn't it? Just two people that can't stand each other being forced together kind of thing. And then season 3 was more of a sci-fi show. You brought in Crichton and all that rest of it. And the situations got a bit more ridiculous and they did a bit more. So, yeah, season 3 probably.
Yeah, I think that's a perfectly good answer. I mean, the correct answer is Series 6, but you're very close for Series 3.
Which one's 6?
It's the one with Gunman of the Apocalypse in.
Okay. Yeah. Are they on Starbug in that one?
Yeah, it's the
Yes,
one.
yeah.
Yeah, it's the.
So it's not actually Red Dwarf. It's
No, it's kind of like almost like a Starbug spin-off, isn't it?
yeah.
I've never thought of it like that. It's not actually Red Dwarf.
Red Dwarf is not in Red Dwarf for that entire series. Good point, well made. So, who's your favourite character?
I like Rimmer. I just love how pathetic the guy is. The way Chris Barrie plays him and the dialogue he gets is always great just to hear the way that he puts things. I love the recurring gag of him getting the Space Corps directives wrong and Crichton correcting them, like actually telling him the one that he's referring to. But yeah, Rimmer, just such a great actor. But all the characters are good. There isn't a character I dislike. Maybe Kachansky was a bit annoying when they brought her in.
Strong disagree on Kachansky, but that is not an unusual opinion. I think when we looked at Series 7, I changed my opinion on Kachansky because I looked at it with a bit more of a critical eye, and the actor's just bloody great. But as for Rimmer, I think you're right about... There's something about Chris Barrie's portrayal of Rimmer where he just does not give a shit about looking absolutely ridiculous. Those scripts are humiliating. And Chris Barrie just takes the bull by both horns and is quite happy to look like a dickhead.
He played a very similar character in the British Empire as well. Just this lunatic that nobody likes. Although I think he wasn't aware that everybody hated him in the British Empire, whereas Rimmer is aware, just doesn't care. He's just the way he is.
And Chris Barrie's had a career of playing unlikable characters, and even what was his name in Prince Among Men, Carl?
Gary Prince.
Gary Prince. He's fundamentally unlikable in that, but from what I've heard, Chris Barrie is just lovely, but he plays knobheads.
He's got good douche energy, hasn't he? That's just the way he comes across.
Yeah. So what would you say is your favourite moment in the show's entire run?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe, again, from backwards, the cat going to relieve himself goes back in. Just the expression on his face. I also like the one, it might be in Series 1 or 2, where he just keeps ordering fish from the food dispenser.
Brilliant.
It's just really funny. Or when he does What Is It over and over again when they go through the time window or whatever it is, the stasis leak.
It's just that I think when it comes to douche energy, there's no one better than Chris Barrie, but maybe you're right about Danny John Jules, that there's no one better at repetitive humour than him, because there's a couple of examples that he gave, but I think there's more where it's just the cat's deadpan repetitive stuff that today's fish is trout a la creme. To this day, me and my brother are in our 40s. I might just walk up to him and go, fish, to which his response is obviously, today's fish is trout a la creme. And I just love the cat. And the correct answer to your favourite character is the cat as well, just so you know. And
okay, I failed.
But what's interesting is that question, what's your favourite moment? We've had a fair few guests now, and not a single one has been the same. Whereas obviously, favourite seasons, favourite characters. I think Rimmer is overall the favourite, but I don't think there's been one single repeat when I've asked people from all over the world, what's your favourite moment in the entire show's run? There's so many brilliant moments to choose from. And finally, this is probably the most important question. Would you like some toast?
Always. I love toast.
Brilliant. So we've talked as much about Red Dwarf as we're going to. We're now talking about Lara Croft Tomb Raider because it stars Chris Barrie. So Tomb Raider, or Lara Croft Tomb Raider, was released in 2001, which means it is post-Series 8 of Red Dwarf. And as I say, we're looking at it because Chris Barrie has got, would you say, a role? Or is it a cameo? I think it's more than a cameo. He's definitely a character that's quite important to the plot, even though he doesn't have that much airtime.
Small role.
Yeah, it's a small role, but I think something to be attributed to Chris Barrie's performance, no matter how small it is in this, in that you can see what the character feels and what his motivations are with regards to Lara.
Yeah, and I think we'll go into Chris Barrie's portrayal quite a lot in this because we are a Red Dwarf podcast and we probably should. But also, you're right that it is a really good portrayal with limited screen time. Tomb Raider had a 115 million budget and made 274 million back, so it's considered to be a success, despite the fact it had pretty bad reviews. But I think it's one of those ones where the reality is the kind of people that are going to go and see Tomb Raider are the kind of people that give no shits about reviews because they like either the game franchise or Angelina Jolie because she's fit.
I can't remember seeing this before we watched this for this, but the first bit I was like, she looks the part. She absolutely looks like the right person. And I was looking into this and there was a very long list of people that were considered. I've got it here. And when you read it off, there's only one other person, I think, that would have been the part, because I've got here, let's see, Jennifer Love Hewitt, Famke Janssen, who I thought would have been an interesting one, coming off of GoldenEye, Jennifer Lopez, Rona Mitra, who was Lara Croft in some of the adverts, Elizabeth Hurley, Ashley Judd, Sandra Bullock.
Oh, no.
Catherine Zeta-Jones, Diane Lane, Demi Moore, and the one who was the favourite was Denise Richards, Christmas Jones herself.
Well, when she was in Bond, she was dressed very like Lara Croft, wasn't she?
She was, actually, yeah. That's a strange one, yeah.
Was Keely Hawes not considered for it?
I can't imagine she'd have been very old at this point, was she? I know she ended up playing her in the games.
Oh, had she not played her by this point? Craig, you're more of an expert on this. Had Keely Hawes played Lara Croft at this point?
2001 was pretty early on in the game's life cycle. I say pretty early on. I mean, it's weird that when you look at the progression of video games from the Atari era to now, the innovations that happen over the space of a couple of years. But this was still the PlayStation era, so Angelina Jolie's playing essentially the PlayStation era Lara Croft, or an approximation of her. And yeah, I remember when I first saw that she was cast, I thought, well, she looks perfect as the part. She seems proportioned like a unrealistic video game character, which I imagine they must have done some work with the costuming to accentuate certain parts of her to make them stand out more.
Apparently, they only padded her one bra size.
Yeah.
Wow. She is buxom, that's for sure. Yeah. And I agree. I think that Angelina Jolie is perfect to play Lara Croft. And part of that is that her physical attributes are quite Lara Croft as well. But I read somewhere that she was considered a poor choice because she doesn't look like Lara.
Yeah, I don't know where that came from, because she definitely does.
Also, who does? You look at the PlayStation graphics, there's nobody that looks like that.
It's weird, because I don't know what the more and more I looked into the production and the casting of this, I don't know what the fans wanted. Because you can see from the off the fact that the first section of this film, she is pretty much completely silent, and she is Lara Croft. She looks the part, and she's doing all of the action, and it looks fantastic, and she looks like the game brought to life. I really can't see the problem.
Yeah,
and I'd love to know what fans at the time wanted or expected or what. I genuinely can't think, because I've got it on in the background as we're recording, and there's scenes where she's in silhouette sort of skulking about. It looks like the game.
Yeah. I'm not great on the game. I don't think I've played it since the 90s, when she had kind of like triangular boobs. I'm genuinely watching this because I like action films and Chris Barrie's in it. Craig, can you give us any insight on how close this is to the plots of the games that were around before 2001?
Well, the games have pretty thin plots in the PlayStation era. It's very much Lara's looking for a MacGuffin and she has to mow down tons of people to get there.
So it is close to that, yeah.
Yeah, it's very light on plot, really. It's not a very long film, actually. Like, for some reason, I remembered it being over 2 hours, but it's an hour and 40.
I think the sequel's a little longer, if I remember rightly.
Well, in looking into this, I did find out that the film's original cut's 130 minutes long.
Okay.
And the director got kicked off the film for it being too long, and they had to give it to somebody else to cut it down to what they wanted. And this was the person who cut down Mission Impossible 2 because that was too long. And basically the guy who did it is a guy called Stuart Baird, and he said he would only do it if they gave him the directing job on Star Trek Nemesis, which he did end up doing.
Oh, God, so that's his fault then.
You're a big fan of Star Trek, but I don't think, by the sounds of that, you're a big fan of Star Trek Nemesis.
I don't mind Nemesis as a film, actually. I think it's fine, but it's definitely not the best it could be, and I don't think Stuart Baird was a good director to have on it. I don't know why he would want that job, but yeah, he was famous as an editor before that, so he edited this down. I think what he must have done was just cut a ton of plot, because it's very thin, but it's enough to get you to the next thing.
Yeah, exactly that. It's set pieces and they're cool, and do you need a complex plot in a video game adaptation film?
I don't think you do, but in this case, I think you needed a slightly thicker plot. Purely for me, when I was watching this, I had moments where I went, oh, I've missed a bit there, I need to go back, because what I'm watching right now doesn't make sense. Like, where I lost where I was a few times during this.
Yeah.
Like, what's the eye? What's that thing? Why has Daniel Craig got that accent?
We'll come on to that in a little while. But let's talk about the guy that was supposed to be the director that had this Beard fellow take it off him. I had a little bit of a look into him, and I was delighted to discover that his work before Lara Croft included the Never Gonna Give You Up video for Rick Astley. And he then subsequently directed Con Air.
Yep.
So, right, it goes Never Gonna Give You Up, Tomb Raider, Con Air. That is quite an odd repertoire.
Oh, yeah. Con Air, Expendables 2. He's the executive producer of Black Hawk Down, which was this year as well. You know, he's done some stuff.
But at least Con Air and Expendables 2 are action films, whereas Never Gonna Give You Up, I've got a lot of words to describe that video. Action is not one of it. Similarly, Tay, Respectable by Mel and Kim. Again, not much action going on there.
Got to start somewhere.
Well, that's it, isn't it?
There's a lot of big directors that got their start on music videos as well. A lot of not big directors. And then adverts as well. Michael Bay, for example, got to start directing Victoria's Secret commercials.
Nice.
And then made his films, essentially, very long Victoria's Secret commercials.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Did you also clock that the guy playing Lara's father was Angelina Jolie's father?
Yeah. They don't speak anymore.
Do they not?
Apparently. Or I don't know if they reconcile, but there was a point where they definitely weren't speaking.
No, that's actually really sad.
This is prime Angelina Jolie being a bit unpredictable, isn't it? This kind of era of time. This is the Johnny Lee Miller marriage wearing vials of each other's blood, or it might be Billy Bob Thornton. I can't remember what marriage she was, but you know, she does a lot of knife play, which turns out being in this film as well. Yeah, so I mean, she seems to have calmed down somewhat now, but this I think was prime. You know, I'm Angelina Jolie and I'm going to do what I want.
I mean, I personally think that if I was Angelina Jolie, I'd probably do what the fuck I wanted as well.
Oh yeah.
It seemed like she was heading for superstardom after this, or around this time, wasn't it?
Which I don't think she ever did, really. Everyone knows who she is because she's hot, but I couldn't name you many of her films. Tomb Raider 2, Eternals, and I struggle for anything in between.
Oh, I don't know. Maleficent.
Oh, Maleficent, yes.
Mr. and Mrs. Smith was a fairly big one, I remember. And Hackers, Mark. You can't forget Hackers.
I did forget Hackers, but okay, Hackers is a good film.
Shame on you, Mark.
Gone in 60 Seconds.
Oh, was she in that? I'm not seeing that.
It's quite a small role she has, but yeah.
Yeah, I still need to watch that film 23 years after it's come out, because I remember back in the day having like a CD-ROM magazine that came through, and it just had loads of different film trailers, and the two I remember the most was Gone in 60 Seconds and the American Psycho trailer. And I've watched American Psycho millions of times, but I've never sat down to actually watch Gone in 60 Seconds. But I really should do.
The most of the time when I watch something new these days, I link it to a podcast, and I can't work out how to link that to Chucky or Red Dwarf, so I'm probably not going to watch it.
Don't know, some kind of Nicolas Cage 6 degrees of separation situation. Perhaps.
That's true. You could do a podcast about 6 degrees of separation, which basically means you can cover whatever the fuck you want, whenever you want. But I kind of do that already with this podcast.
You could do a podcast about Nicolas Cage's filmography just called He'll Do It.
Yeah.
Carl, that's your next project.
He'll Do It, a Nicolas Cage filmography podcast.
Magnificent. I'm in. I'll guest. The only other thing about the film, before we actually look at the film itself, that I wanted to highlight was that this was Chris Barrie's film debut. It was the first film he ever did. He'd only done telly up to this point.
Oh.
It's a good start.
Yeah.
You have to wonder how he got in here then. There must have been something that got him in there.
Well, so the BBC were linked to this project. It says that at the start of the credits, that the BBC are partly involved in it. And that was going to be my question, is do you think Chris Barrie was particularly popular with the Beeb at that point because he'd had some success with, well, 2 very popular sitcoms? Do you think that's how he got his in?
I think so. I can imagine that they've gone, look, because this was a bit, I looked on his IMDb, this is a bit of a quiet bit of time for Chris Barrie. He's coming out of A Prince Among Men, and he doesn't really do much until Red Dwarf again, really. So whether he was just doing voiceover at this point, or he was taking a break, because this was around the time he had the git overload, as he likes to famously say, where he'd had enough.
Right.
But if his agent and the BBC were like, well, go have a look at this, Chris. It's a couple of, I bet it was a couple of days for him to do it, because it's all in the same location. Like, go do this and see how it goes, and he ends up getting it, because he does play a very good butler.
He does. I think I'd have liked the Hillary character anyway. The butler with a bit of sass, who's clearly very dedicated and adores the woman he works for. But I do feel like Chris Barrie was a great casting, and maybe I'm biased, but I think he does a brilliant job.
He does. He takes what little he's got in it and makes the most of it. Because in the games, Hillary's a doddering old man.
It's Winston in the games, the guy's name.
Winston, sorry.
Yeah.
So why do you think they changed that? Why do you think Winston became Hillary?
I think that, without spoiling too much, they wanted someone who could get more involved and to have a bit more of that interaction with Angelina Jolie, which I don't... Because in this we're talking about the father quite a bit. If she's got an older father figure in terms of the butler, maybe that wouldn't... It would take away a bit. Also, it's a bit Alfred, isn't it?
Yeah.
Suppose it is.
The interesting thing is this is a bit closer to the reboot, the first reboot. There's been 2 reboots, but the first reboot, Tomb Raider Legend and Anniversary and so on. She has a support team in Tomb Raider Legend, so she has like a tech guy, which she has in this film. And I forget if she has a butler. I haven't played them in a while. But anyway, it's a bit more similar to that. So I find that interesting that the games would later adopt this sort of team dynamic.
So there was no tech guy in the games up to this point in 2001 then?
No, she did all her own research and went from place to place by herself. The only other person that she had in her corner was the butler, and you only saw him during the training house levels. So
the butler, I know there's some kind of... I've only really vague idea about it, but I know there's some kind of thing that you can do to the butler where it's super mean. You can put him in a wardrobe or something. Oh, a freezer.
You can lock him in the freezer, yeah.
Was this before or after Lara Croft Tomb Raider?
What do you mean before the film?
Yeah.
So basically he's playing the butler that everyone put in the freezer. Is that what you're saying?
It's certainly based on him, yeah.
Yeah. But I think it's in one of the later games that I think you can find, if you're wandering around, you can find his diary. And he mentions that she sort of, I think he's talking about her as a young child, as like locked me in the freezer again. and just does actually mention the fact that she locks him in the freezer all the time.
He also farts as well in Tomb Raider 2. That was something they included.
Wow. I can't help thinking they made the right choice of switching out Winston for Hillary, even with or without Chris Barrie actually being pretty good in this. Because you get a very early Chris Barrie after your superb opening action theme. 6 minutes in, you get Chris Barrie, and that popped me because I was like, well, I'm here for Chris Barrie. 6 minutes in, I've got him.
Yeah, it's that. I think it's what they sort of say in a lot of the Red Dwarf comedies: is comes in, gets a woofer, leaves.
It's true. So, what did you think about the opening scene with the robot, and then basically the kind of it's not actually dangerous, but it could have been a bit like the Danger Room from X-Men. I thought
It is essentially that, yeah. It's also that early 2000s thing of, let's put a cool thing in our film, even though it makes zero sense and has nothing to do with the rest of the plot of the movie. There's two examples of that in this movie. One is this robot sequence, and the other is where she's just bungeeing around her living room for no reason.
This feels like, to me, is, say, if you've played the first game, you'll know... You the first thing you do in the first game is the training level, which is you're bouncing around the house.
Yeah.
And this, to me, feels like that on steroids, because you can have her bouncing around the house, but let's have her bouncing around the house with jocking great robots chasing her down. And I think that this, to me, is a bit like that, in paying a bit of lip service to that, but obviously in a film you've got to really amp it up a bit. And the robots look great. I think they're models.
Yeah, there's very little CGI in this film, I think. There is some, and some of it looks pretty bad, but a lot of it's practical. Yeah. It made me think about how much I missed some of this, because they actually go on location. That big set at the end, the giant clock planetary alignment thing, is a fully practical thing. And apparently they just drop they just drop a cave on it, essentially. They break it. So, yeah, the practical stuff was appreciated.
And I think, as cool set-piece action film malarkeys go, I really enjoyed this. I was like, do you know what? I haven't seen this film since about maybe 2002, 2003. I watched it once and I liked it, but I was never a huge fan of the games, and I was never a kind of... I'd much prefer to watch something I haven't watched if I didn't love it. Whereas this opened and I was like, I'm into this. But I did momentarily get pissed off because I was like, well, they're using the music from Sin City. Sin City was released in 2005. Sin City used the music from Lara Croft's Tomb Raider. It's a track by a band called Fluke, who I've literally listened to one song of theirs, and it's this, because it was in Sin City. And it's a fantastic track. It really fits well with the fight scene. And I was like, I'm into this. This is great.
It is a very good song. I mean, it was everywhere. I had it on a compilation in like the late 90s that was like a football one. So it was like all the ones that they used to play over compilations of goals and stuff. And they used to play, I think Sky Sports used to use it all the time just because of the beat on it. It's a cracking tune. And then when she stops the robot and puts her mix on, admittedly when that started, when whatever song that is started playing, I was like, what's this shit?
The song was probably in other films as well around the period. It's probably one of those heavily licensed things.
In Sin City, it's playing when you meet the character played by Jessica Alba, the stripper, and she's doing that whirly thing with the lasso, and that's iconic as well. Like, this is really just so memorable. It's a great track, and it works.
Yeah, absolutely. So they should bring it back and put it in more films.
I mean, why not? So we get Chris Barrie playing Hillary, and we see the relationship that the character has with Lara Croft. And like we've said, I think it really establishes it super well. And then the shower scene is fucking gratuitous.
Apparently for Angelina Jolie, not gratuitous enough.
Yeah, it's going to be more, but they would have had to cover up more tattoos, apparently, because she has a lot of tattoos.
Yeah, apparently she wanted more sex appeal stuff. Apparently there's like another shower scene that got cut. There's nude shots that got cut. you saw her arse, this kind of stuff. Apparently she was like proper wanted that all back in. Apparently it's like 7 minutes worth of just naked Angelina Jolie, and they were like, no, let's cut this down.
I mean, is there a Lara Croft Tomb Raider, the dad cut, where all of that gets put back in?
Or the teenage boy cut?
Yeah, like. Both of those things. Yeah.
I think it is in the deleted scenes on the DVD and Blu-ray. But yeah, just 9 minutes of just.
I mean, those outfits are quite revealing anyway. You know, the skin tight booby top. Well, I don't even know what to call it.
I was surprised that we saw basically side boob straight away from when she gets out of the shower and walks past Chris Barrie.
Yep.
I'd laugh if that wasn't planned and that was just to make Chris Barrie laugh. I do love his reaction of, very good, yes, he's not fussed at all.
He sees this every day, but there's nothing to him.
He's trying to turn her into a lady.
He's not doing very well, and I like it. It's great. I know you've been champing at the bit, Carl. Let's talk about Daniel Craig's American accent.
Well, it's... I mean, oh, God. I was still trying to find... I want to point out, big fan of Knives Out. Thinking that the Benoit Blanc accent is spot on. Initially, I was like, what the hell is this? And then it's like, no, this is perfect. But in this, it's like, what are you doing, man? Part of me thinks, because you've got Ian Glenn in this as the baddie, and he's got a very deep and English sexy voice, because as you all know, if you want a villain, you go English, especially in the late sort of 90s, early 2000s. Maybe having that and Daniel Craig and John Voight seemingly doing his best Anthony Hopkins impression was too much. Just too much deep Englishness. I mean, you've got Julian Ryan Tutt in there as well, who's not doing the deep English voice. He's doing the nerdy English voice. But maybe it was too much. But it's a choice. And the director's British as well. And he must have been able to look Daniel Craig in the eye with a straight face and go, that's great, Daniel, keep doing that.
So, right, let's take a step back. Craig, these characters, are they all British in the game? In fact, are all of these characters in the games?
So the only character from this film that appears in the game is Lara. Everyone else is unique to this film.
What?
Yeah, it's an adaptation. It's not a direct adaptation of any of the games. So the closest other character is the Hillary game. Even he's not a direct adaptation. So yeah, everybody is invented for this game.
But so not even her dad or the rival.
Well, her dad is called Richard, but I don't think I think it's maybe this film that canonises that. I don't think that was established before the film came out.
And do subsequent films take these characters and incorporate them into the games, or are they just unique to the film?
Well, her support team is in the first reboot, but I don't think it's even the same people that are here. You do get some chat about her dad in one of the eventually, but like I say, I don't think it's until after this film, till way later. The Tomb Raider games weren't really concerned with the story that much. It was just an excuse to get you from level to level to level. She finds a thing, she kills the big creature thing, and then goes home. Or in the case of The Last Revelation, doesn't go home.
Fascinating. So they basically had a completely free reign, and this didn't really need to be Tomb Raider. She just looks like a character from a video game. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, it's one of those. It's an adaptation, but it's not really an adaptation.
Yeah.
But you get that with almost everything, don't you? The idea of you could have made this something else, but you wanted that brand recognition.
Yeah, it's like with the Mario Brothers. Everybody knows what the Mario Brothers is, but you're going to have to throw more of a plot in there than what the game is, and the same can be said for Tomb Raider.
But I guess maybe I'm looking at this from a modern video games perspective, where video game writing is considered to be, you know, as much of a prestigious job as writing for a film these days, and plots and reveals and shocks are a big deal, whereas perhaps in 2001 that just simply wasn't the case.
Yeah. I mean, by 2001 they'd killed her in the games, hadn't they? Or they'd hinted that they'd killed her.
Yeah, she gets trapped underground at the end of the fourth Tomb Raider game, and then she comes back in the unplayable Angel of Darkness that is universally agreed to be awful.
And then they rebooted it like 4 years after that. So I think both films came out before they rebooted the game continuity.
Yeah.
Right.
Such as it was.
Yeah, I'm just looking here. They rebooted it in 2006 and then do it again in 2013.
Yeah. And then there was the Alicia Vikander film that wasn't a direct adaptation of the reboot game either, but it was certainly inspired by the 2013 game.
Yeah.
I've not seen the rebooted film. Was Hillary in that, or was it back to Winston? Or was there no butler?
No, there was no butler.
No butler! Boo.
I've not seen the rebooted film. I was quite interested. It did look quite fun, but now they're talking about doing a TV show on Amazon by Phoebe Waller-Bridge is supposed to be doing it.
Yeah, that's the one where Hayley Atwell's supposed to voice Lara Croft.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't realise it was animated. I thought it was going to be a live-action one.
No, well, I don't know if it's changed, but I certainly remember reading that a while ago. And Hayley Atwell's one of those actors that people cast as a live-action Lara Croft, fan cast. The other one would be Rebecca Ferguson, Mission Impossible, and so on. Just anyone that looks vaguely Lara Croft-esque gets put in that role. I liked Alicia Vikander, though. I think it's a shame that they won't do another one with her.
Yeah. Barrowman. We should put Barrowman in it. Give him some pigtails. I bet he's got the shorts.
No, I don't want to talk about John Barrowman. So we'll move on to a scene that you've touched on, Craig, already, where she's kind of like doing a bungee, bouncy thingy. I don't know what to call it, but it seems like she does that to relax. And I've always wanted to go on one of those things, but I'm not sure it would be a relaxing experience. But it's all essentially linked to a pretty fucking great second action piece.
Yeah.
The director calls it the Bungee Ballet, apparently.
The Bungee Ballet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think we've jumped a little bit over the baddies.
I covered that with Daniel Craig's accent. Do you want to talk about the baddies as well then? Okay.
Yeah, they try and explain the plot, and this is you've got Ian Glenn in full slick back hair, black suit, as I'd like to describe it on other podcasts, giving good bastard. And then he's meeting with. They don't really establish that it's them until the very end, but they're the Illuminati, sitting in a cathedral with candles, because of course they are. And how it's all about the planets are going to align for the first time in 5,000 years, and they need to harness the power of this thing. Like I say, there are moments in this film where like, what's happening now? And this was one of those things where they just sort of go, oh, it's going to be, we need this artifact because the planets are aligning every 5,000 years and we're running out of time and we've got a week. Okay, and then into the bouncing ballet bit. This was the whole thing I was like, they were just talking about it in a not talking about it kind of way.
The planetary alignment thing, that was happening in real life around about that time. I don't think it was quite to the same scale, but I remember there was some kind of... The planets are closer to each other than they've ever been for a long time or whatever. I remember that was like something that was really happening around the time the film came out.
Yeah. It's the thing where it's all like, I'm very confident we're going to have our answer in time for the planetary alignment. Like, what answer? What question? It's like, you've got 1 week. To do what? It's like, what are we talking about?
Also, you've known it was coming for 5,000 years, and you wait till the last minute to do something about it?
Yep. Why are they there when they should be at the place that they are by the time we get to the finale of the film?
Yeah. And I think the Illuminati is an interesting choice because whilst it was a figure of fun around 2001, I don't think anyone really believed in the Illuminati, or certainly not the way that people do now. I winced at the term Illuminati because it makes me now think about ridiculous people who invade the American not the White House, where evil Jamiroquai and his lot.
Evil Jamiroquai.
Do you not remember Evil Jamiroquai, who invaded like the politicky thing in America?
The January 6th people. Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Yeah.
And so it made me I don't know, triggered is a strong word, but I did wince that they'd used the Illuminati because it has really kind of dark, real-world conspiracy theory stuff associated with it now, that I think it was just lol Illuminati in 2001. Or am I being naive there?
I don't know. They're very... I don't remember much of the Illuminati being used as like a cinematic bad guy in the 2000s. I don't know about you, Craig.
No, I don't think so. And although the whole conspiracy thing, that was very in vogue at the time. So the idea of secret societies running everything underneath our noses and all that stuff, that was in vogue. I don't know if the Illuminati was a big deal at the time. Maybe they were just accidentally predictive when they just chose the Illuminati as this group to essentially poke fun at making the villains here.
I mean, I guess maybe I wasn't as involved or scared by politics in 2001 as I am now.
I thought you were going to say I wasn't as involved with the Illuminati in 2001 as I am now.
There's no such thing as the Illuminati.
Someone in the Illuminati would say, Mark.
Oh, it's not even funny though, is it? I genuinely think that the Illuminati was... anyone who believed in it was treated with scorn around the time this was made, whereas there are so many powerful people now that genuinely believe it, and the internet has made people that would have never encountered conspiracy theories encounter them and get sucked. I don't know. But at the time, I think the Illuminati certainly wasn't as threatening or as unpleasant as it is now.
No. I mean, we're still talking dial-up era here, aren't we? So this is probably, the Illuminati's just a thing that people may have read in books.
Yeah. And I feel like the Illuminati was portrayed as much more fiction in the early thousands than it is now. And I'm like, it is fucking fiction.
Well, the thing I like about these characters in this film is you've got Ian Glenn, who plays Powell, who's doing the very confident, we will be ready, to the higher-ups. And then you've got Julian Rintut, who plays Pims, weirdly enough is his name. And it cuts to them leaving the building and go, we don't know what we're doing, do we? No. It's almost like they're the heroes of the road comedic. They're in the Illuminati, but they've not got a clue. You know, that kind of film.
They've had 5,000 years to prepare for this. They're a week away from it happening, and they haven't done anything.
What's going to happen?
Let's just hope we have a competent treasure hunter that can find all this stuff we need.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, dear.
Yeah. So let's move on and talk about the action scene with the bungee shit going on. And there's only one thing that I remembered about this film before I rewatched it for the podcast, and that was the motorbike back wheel wheelie smack in the face. One of the greatest moments of cinematic history. I remember seeing it. I think I got up out of my seat and embarrassed myself because it's just so fucking great.
It is, I mean, I remember, what's that silly film with Will Smith playing himself?
Hancock?
No, he plays him and younger him.
No idea.
Gemini Man. I do remember them going, oh, look at the effects in this, and he does the back wheel slap with a bike. And then when I saw this, it was like, you robbing bastard! It was like, you stole it from... Tomb Raider in 2001 is a source that people just keep robbing from, Mark. I don't know about... people keep nicking from Tomb Raider.
I remembered nothing about this film other than Chris Barrie and that particular moment where she used the back wheel of a motorbike whilst doing a front wheelie to clock a baddie round the face. I was like, fuck yeah. Also, that would really hurt.
Yeah. No, definitely.
Almost as much as being whacked in the face by a very fast-moving screwdriver.
Ow.
Yes.
But did you enjoy that scene? I know you said that it was tenuously linked to, well, she, in her leisure time, just bounces on bungee ropes. But I don't care. I really enjoyed the whole scene. It was cool and it was fun. It was classic, like, late 90s where they shoot 1,000,000 bullets and she doesn't get hit once. I don't care. I don't want realism in my action. I want cool shit.
Yeah.
Well, it does say something about her character as well, the whole thrill-seeking angle, as in she can't sit still. This is how she relaxes, just by doing something that's really thrilling and dangerous.
There's the scene where she wakes up in the night and finds the clock, and has to go wake up her tech guy who lives in a trailer in the house.
Yeah, on the grounds. Yeah,
on the grounds, which I thought was interesting. She's just this thing of like she's always on adventure. When Chris Barrie walks up to her and goes, "Well, it's time to get back to work. Adventures to be done." It's like, oh, it's a job.
Yeah, and he has 3 options. Do you want to check out a Spanish galleon? Do you want to go to Egypt or whatever? And she's like, nah, not Egypt, there's sand. And George Lucas stole some dialogue from this film for Attack of the Clones, didn't he?
I'm telling you, they're just nicking stuff. Yeah.
Carl's conspiracy theory is getting more and more evidence. But we've glossed over the fact that Chris Barrie is a badass with a shotgun. You wouldn't get Winston doing that, would you?
He does do the delivery of the Sam gets everywhere in the cracks, and he does the rimmer nostrils. You almost feel like that flaring of the nostrils, that was for the Red Dwarf fans. Probably true. It was good to see him kick ass.
Yeah.
It really was. Because, well, we never get to see him do it, do we?
No.
And it's just the fact that I like the fact he takes his time, and you kind of see him get ready. I thought they were going to do the thing of he was going to get super ready, and by the time he was ready, it was over.
Right.
And it would be like almost like the Kurt Russell in Big Trouble in Little China thing of him leaping out, like ha, and there's nobody left. But, and I love the fact that this happens, he does get to take some people down.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder whether that would have worked as well with the Butler character if it wasn't played by Chris Barrie with his background as playing cowardly, useless, wimpy characters.
I think it's good because it's a surprise.
Yeah.
I suppose for years in Red Dwarf he couldn't even touch anything, never mind do anything cool.
Yeah. I think part of me thinks when he was like, yeah, I suppose I could do it. You get a gun, I'll do it. You know, it's... Not getting too far ahead, I know that one of the things that when the sequel rolls around is apparently the reaction was we want to see more Hillary, and in the sequel you do see more Hillary,
yeah,
which is good. It's almost a shame there weren't more, because Chris Barrie's had this thing. We talked about this when we talked about the US Dwarf back in the days. There's been a couple of times when he could have gone to America, but he doesn't want to. Or he doesn't want to get tied into it. And I think this could have been another thing, is if these had done better, he might have got a bit more work in America. Or at least offered a bit more work in America.
Maybe, yeah.
So, stuff happens, and you're right, Carl, it is a little bit kind of, whoa, this is fast. And the next thing I've made a note of is that Lara Croft rides a giant phallus. Do you want to talk about anything before the giant phallus?
Where's the giant phallus?
When she's on that massive pole that has to penetrate something.
Oh yeah, that's way after this, isn't it?
God, Mark, that's like an hour and a bit into the film.
I know, but I kind of I just kind of melted away. I should have probably done a better job. And also, there was no Chris Barrie, and then there was a giant phallus, and that's probably where I've got it from.
During that home invasion sequence, I like the bit where she's aiming based on where she knows the cars are parked. And then she makes a mistake because someone moved one.
Yes, I do like that, but it's something a bit different, and you almost kind of, because it's Bryce, the tech guy, who's telling him where the cars are.
Yeah, I think the Aston or whatever.
Yeah, but Chris Barrie would probably have been itching to do that scene, just to reel off a number of cars.
Yeah, but it's also quite a Rimmer role as well. When you think about it, he did a lot of the control room stuff when he was a hologram, at least, and also he did it in Back to Earth. So that's kind of like a Chris Barrie kind of character thing.
I do like the short scene after the home invasion of the DHL delivery guy turning up to deliver something, and he's just greeted by Bryce and Hillary sweeping up the remains of the home invasion.
Yeah.
Her excuse is like, I just hated everything this morning, so I just destroyed it.
I mean, that does sound quite eccentric British lord kind of behaviour, doesn't it?
Yeah. Weird rich person.
Yeah, well, I was going to say either that or Tommy Lee behaviour, if you've seen the documentary on Netflix. Carl, you're going to have to take over until we get to the giant phallus.
Okay. Oh dear. So let me see where we are. So,
But there's a whole lot of plot after that. She goes to the auction house and stuff like that. All that's kind of hurry up and do something.
Exactly,
Yes.
and that's why I've gone do giant phallus.
there's a clip. Basically, after the home invasion, she receives word that the Triangle of Light, which is a story that her father told her back in the day, is at auction, and it's real, and it can potentially harness the power of when all the planets do align. So she has to go and get it from an auction house, and apparently it was built the day that the last time the planets all aligned, it fell to Earth and was in a crater, and it could be used for great good or great evil. And now it's an auction house in Sotheby's, but it's been split in half, so nobody could ever wield the power again, as the last person went a bit nuts with it and destroyed an entire city. So Lara wants to go get part of it because she believes that other people are trying to get hold of it as well.
So forgive me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. Thing that you need lots of parts of, and you have to go to different places to collect. That's proper video game shit, that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's also
absolutely.
proper film stuff. How many films are about people trying to get hold of a couple of things in order to do something? In Star Wars, for example, the Rise of Skywalker is one big MacGuffin hunt. They're looking for 2 or 3 MacGuffins in that movie. It is kind of transcended video games into just movie storytelling. We need to go look for this thing, and the real story is the adventure we have along the way. Kind of structure.
True.
Yes. So she's found a clock. Well, she's found a thing her father left her, which basically the whole plot's explained in one speech.
It starts ticking in the night for some reason.
Yes. So she finds out that the thing that's in this clock, it's the key to retrieving the Triangle of Light, which has been split in half. One's in a tomb, funnily enough, somewhere in Cambodia, and the other one is supposed to be located in Siberia. So this is all in a note her father left her before he passed away. And so this leads to the slightly odd bit with Chris Barrie saying, how are you going to get to Cambodia in 15 hours? And she says, if I tell you, I would have to kill you, which leads to just pure more nasal flaring on behalf of Chris Barrie. And then we see that she gets dropped out of a helicopter in a jeep, which would kill a normal person, but not Lara Croft.
Yeah, but it's an early 2000s action movie, whatever.
True. Yeah.
Again, I'm not going to argue with the physics of an action movie because that would completely ruin my escapism enjoyment of action movies.
Yeah. Well, she ends up in Cambodia, and it's actually Cambodia from what we can see. It looks really nice, and like you said before, Craig, this is the era where they still went out, and did big location shoots.
Yeah.
So yeah, you see, she does a quick look. She sees Powell there, and then she sees Alex West, who is Daniel Craig's character, who is, from what we can tell, an ex that they also served in some kind of military together from a photograph. So he appears to be there as well, trying to find half of the triangle.
It boggles me that this relationship is quite a focus of the film, and this character doesn't exist in the video games. I just assumed that I knew about the butler because I knew about the fridge thing, but I just assumed that you always had a rival that you were like racing in time in the video game, and it was this guy, and he doesn't fucking exist. That boggles my mind.
There was all sorts of other people that are after the thing she's after in the video games, but it's like in an Indiana Jones film. They don't tend to make it out of the game.
Right.
And then the next one is someone else.
There's never really been a recurring villain in the games from what I remember.
No, there's a recurring organisation eventually, Trinity we call it, and that's fed into the reboot film as well, the Alicia Vikander one. But there's no like singular figure.
It's basically an excuse. Like, we've got an organisation, so we can send singular villains under our umbrella, and then we don't have to explain too much about them apart from they're an agent of, Pasha. Or
An agent of what now?
Pasha. Agent of Pasha.
They wouldn't be very bright if they were agents of Pasha. For those of you that aren't regular listeners, Pasha is my cat.
Ooh, someone's getting clawed in the night for that comment, Mark.
No, she might like sleep on me in the night. She does that. She doesn't claw me. She loves me.
You can be the first agent of Pasha.
I am an agent of Pasha. I'm certainly property of Pasha. We're moving on from talking about my cat.
Okay. Yeah. So what we see Alex West is there, and he's not just standing with the hired people that they've got to do literally the old heave ho to try and break open this tomb. It's just lines and lines of guys on a rope going heave ho, and he joins in. So he's not just like whipping them into shape to get them there. He's actually taking off his shirt for the ladies and for the dads in some cases, and pulling the ropes to get them out. And eventually, the giant polystyrene statue that's blocking the tomb does fall apart. During all of this, Ian Glenn's character is on a beanbag, eating fruit and drinking tea, wearing what can only be described as the inverse Indiana Jones outfit, the leather waistcoat on and the hat. And you see the opposite side of his shot, and there's just a mountain of fruit in front of him, which hopefully is for the workers. You know, yes, they're Illuminati, but they put on a good spread. You know what I mean? None of your sausages on sticks, you know. Or if they are, they're the good ones, not just the ones you get from down the supermarket.
Have we got to the riding the giant phallus yet? I must have switched off for a significant part of this film.
Part of me wonders if you did doze off during this film, Mark, because we've still got a good chunk to go before we get to the giant phallus.
Bugger.
So Lara Croft is trying to sneak around, however, they do know that she is turning up. They get inside of the cave.
She has to solve a puzzle. Well, she's not discovered yet, but eventually she has to solve a puzzle.
Yeah, so they're trying to solve the puzzle. Basically, they want the clock that Lara's got to solve this puzzle. However, Lara realises that they are trying to put the key in the wrong keyhole on the puzzle, and she gets them to give her the clock, and she unlocks the first part of the puzzle, which leads to another big bloody action sequence where the statues come to life and start to attack. Did you miss this part as well?
Was that the monkey statues?
Yes.
Oh, I thought the giant phallus was before the monkey statues.
Yeah, is that not after the urn is pierced?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean...
Yeah, she rides the giant phallus and it pierces an urn, and then the monkeys come alive.
You really focused on this giant phallus thing, Mark.
It's an iconic image, obviously. It's like riding the bomb in that film that I've forgotten the name of.
Doctor Strange.
Yeah. She's riding a giant phallus that penetrates an urn, and then monkeys happen.
Yeah, giant monkey statues do kick into life.
I didn't hate the monkey statues. I thought that for 2001, they worked perfectly well, and it was quite fun.
Yeah, they didn't look... I mean, I'm guessing they were CG, unless they did, like, model shots with blokes in suits, but, you know...
They were definitely CG, yeah.
Yeah, they were definitely CG, but they didn't look bad. I mean, we've just come out of Red Dwarf 7 with their CG, and that was... Oof. The fact that this doesn't look too bad shows the leap in CG over the 4 years or whatever it's been.
Well, I mean, you're talking about BBC TV budget CG as well, which wouldn't be the highest quality, would it? This is a $100-something million film where
True.
we would have had, you know, the best available in theory. Although this was relatively early days for using CG, so yeah, some of it's a bit ropey. It's that silver liquid that stood out to me. It's like, wow, that looks really bad.
Yeah. I mean, in this we've got the build-up of... They've only got like 60 seconds to do this, to unleash it all.
60 seconds to penetrate something with a giant phallus, yes.
Exactly, yeah. So it's 60 seconds to penetration, and Lara keeps telling them they've made a mistake, and eventually Powell caves in and lets her open the seal, before leading to riding the giant phallus.
This sounds like a fantastic Friday night.
Yeah. Yeah, she hits the giant phallus, it explodes and covers everybody in liquid. Which then, there is a lovely shot of Daniel Craig during all of this, because it takes a while of going back and forth on this to build up the pendulum swing. And there is just a shot of Daniel Craig during all of this, and he's got this look on his face of, all right. And he's just got that smile of, like, when you're ready.
Brilliant.
But it all fills with light, so they've done something mystical by penetrating with the giant phallus. And it all goes a bit Raiders of the Lost Ark, but without anybody melting. And I say, are you back with us notes-wise here, Mark? Or
I think so, yeah. She then does a fantastic waterfall dive, doesn't she? That's ace, that. So she, like, escapes, doesn't she, with half of the triangle thing. And she does a fantastic waterfall dive. I'd like to think it was Angelina Jolie that did it. I suspect it wasn't. But there's lots of really cool shit in this film that just I really enjoyed watching.
Yeah, I mean, with this, when you say you'd like to think it was Angelina Jolie, it wasn't Angelina Jolie, but who it was Eunice Huthart.
From Gladiators.
That's the one.
Wow.
This was the first time that she doubled for Angelina Jolie, and she's doubled for Angelina Jolie many times, and is godmother to one of her daughters. So this was like one of the first times that they met and worked together, and it's been a long relationship sort of ever since. So I'm guessing she does the waterfall dive that we see in the film.
That's amazing. Also,
yeah.
Would you do that? If you had the opportunity to do it, would you do a waterfall dive?
Absolutely not.
If I knew it was safe at the bottom, sure, why not?
I think I would too.
I'm terrified of heights, but I probably wouldn't go head first, like she does in the film.
Yeah, maybe a waterfall jump rather than a waterfall dive.
Waterfall pencil dive I'd probably go for.
Yeah. So yeah, then they do more stuff, and Bryce watches the clangers and uses the word smashing, which I was delighted with. I haven't made very good notes, Carl.
It's okay. She does wash up in a Buddhist village. It literally goes from I'm diving headfirst into a river to I am sailing in. Basically, I rows a boat in with not really a hair out of place.
But then she calls Bryce, and he's watching the clangers, and he uses the word smashing, which I think, I don't know, smashing. It's definitely an old lady word. I don't think it was ever cool for young people that happen to be British to use the word smashing. Smashing's definitely a British word, but I'm not sure it was the right choice for Bryce's character.
Well, pretty much up to this point, all he's really said is bugger.
Which is also a very British word.
Yeah. Also, she calls Powell, because basically when she washes up in the Buddhist village, she says her phone doesn't work because it's wet. And she ends up using a satellite phone, which is a poor lad holding a satellite receiver in his hands, like holding it up while she's on the phone, looking immaculate. They've managed to get her a dress that looks fantastic, and she's only been there about 5-10 minutes.
And she's an expert at blending into local culture. She just respects them so much.
Exactly.
That's what they're getting at.
But when they cut to Bryce, who's on the other end of the phone, he's in some kind of opium den getting massaged. And again, lots of fruit. Loads of fruit. Ian Glenn must have insisted on this. Because he's like, if I'm going to be here shooting all day, I'm going to peck away at some of this fruit. And it's a good day for flip phones. There's a lot of flip phones in this film.
That was before mobile phones were ubiquitous, wasn't it? We didn't all have them at the time. I didn't have one at the time.
Yeah, it was a sign of opulence. Like I'm a high travelling adventurer, so I've got my satellite flip phone.
I definitely had a flip phone in the early thousands.
I didn't get my first mobile phone until maybe 2004. 2003, 2004.
I got mine when I was at university in the 90s, so I definitely had one. I think at this point I did have a flip phone, and it was the one that had 5 voice activated numbers. So obviously there was Mum and Dad, and there was one of my friends, and there was one I recorded when I was drunk, Taxi. And the problem with that one was, if I phoned a taxi when I was sober, I went, "Taxi please, polite mark to phone," not recognised. The only way that voice one ever worked was if I went, "Taxi," like I was drunk. So yeah, flip phones were the best. But no, they weren't.
I never had a flip phone.
They're coming back though, aren't they? But I never had a flip phone. I had the 3210, the brick shithouse of the mobile phone world.
It is a classic. I only had the 3310, the sequel, which had Snake.
I had the 3330, which had WAP that didn't work. It was just the 3310, but with WAP that didn't work. That was the only difference. WAP being the very early mobile phone internet for our very young listeners.
Yes. Misunderstood that song was. It was all about early mobile networking.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm struggling for notes here. I've got that she looks really cool in her kind of Matrix-style outfit.
That's still a bit further to go.
Carl, you're going to have to take it. I'm sorry. I failed.
That's all right. So Lara ends up going into the temple and going through a ceremony where she also sits with a... I think in the IMDb he's classed as like older priest, but he's not that old. And she drinks some tea which mystically heals her, which is hilarious, I thought. And then the thing that made me laugh is I looked into it because I thought, I recognise this lad who plays the older priest. And then I realised the reason he doesn't say that much in it is that lad's Scouse. Yeah, I know him from other things. He's got a very thick Scouse accent, so he's really trying to cover it up in this scene by trying to be very Buddhist. Also, he reveals that he knew her father as well, but doesn't really give any more information apart from that.
Obviously video games have like unrealistic healing factors and things. Is mystical tea one of the things that you can get to heal yourself in the video games, Craig?
No, it was always just health packs. Small or large health pack.
So basically first aid kits.
Yeah.
So no mystical tea.
No.
Mystical tea is so much cooler than a little first aid kit.
And I think maybe in the first reboot you just restored health over time. Definitely in the second reboot. It's the modern video game thing of if you're damaged, crouch behind a chest-high wall for a few seconds and then you're back to full health.
Moving on, there is a bit of a showdown between Lara and Powell, which is inadvertently hilarious, I thought, because she greets him with, "You're in the Illuminati," and he says, "I'm not. There's no such thing. I don't know what you're talking about," in a very, "Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Oh, God," kind of way.
Sounds a lot like Mark earlier in this podcast. Claiming they don't exist.
But then she turns around and throws a knife, because big knife fan in this film, Angelina Jolie, and it lands in the middle of the eye of the Illuminati symbol, which is on the altar, slap bang in the middle of the room, and he's still there going, not the Illuminati. No, of course not. With all these thrones in a line that we all sit in and face outwards. So they do a deal where Lara agrees to help them with the triangle. I can't even remember what it's called now. The triangle of light. In return, she'd basically get put on the board for the Illuminati. But it's also hinted that her father may have been with the Illuminati, and that's what led to him being killed. But she refuses to believe it. Basically, they try. They sort of said that if you've got this power, you could possibly go back in time and get your father back.
Oh, I covered that in my notes with wibbly wobbly timey-wimey.
All right then. You're right to take over.
No, clearly not.
Okay. So they offer it to sort of like, this is the deal. If you go back, we can go back in time, get your father back. Will you, reconsider? And she walks away calmly with a smile on her face. So, like, has she considered it? Will she not? And then we get the next gratuitous shower scene, but instead it's Daniel Craig.
Yeah. He's kind of not quite James Bond shape, though, is he? He's not quite as insanely, unpleasantly shredded.
You're right, Mark. He's absolutely horrendous to look at.
No, what I'm getting at is he actually looks better in this than he does as Bond. I think, because he's not insanely, unpleasantly, unnaturally shredded.
No, he's not. He doesn't look like he's bulked up. This looks like his natural kind of thing. There's also almost the Austin Powersy thing of everything he walks into conveniently covers his junk.
Yeah.
And he swings open the door with a gun to some poor maid who chucks a pair of towels directly at his balls. It's great filmmaking, Mark. To be fair, in just that you've really got to cover the junk.
Austin Powers had happened by this point, hadn't it? They've got no excuse for that.
Yeah. Although then there is the thing of. Which you don't normally get in these films, is they have a very flirty... Lara Croft turns up, they have a very, very flirty conversation, and she leaves, and he turns around and says, now I've got to go take a cold shower.
Yeah. I mean, it could have been worse.
We then go to the expedition about ready to kick off with the Illuminatis. Again, Pims and Powell have their comedic thing of, what's in the box? Oh, it's the artifact we need. And Pim's going, it's not, is it? As far as they know it is. Hey! They're just in a different film. Or there's another one going on at the same time that we just don't know about. Which would be probably justified to me why Julian Ryan-Tutt's in this film.
Oh, I like Julian Ryan-Tutt and his character in this film.
But then Lara does turn up in, as you said, the super cool Matrix outfit, which I believe is the outfit from... I don't think it's from Angel of Darkness, because that's after this film. But I'm sure this outfit does get used in the game.
Craig?
Not that I remember, but I haven't played a lot of PlayStation... In fact, I haven't played any of the PlayStation ones in years, because they would be unplayable now by modern standards. It'd be very difficult to go back to. But certainly her costuming in this film is... if not directly lifted, then certainly inspired. She doesn't wear her iconic, like, turquoise top, for example, in this film ever.
No. And then, weirdly, she's brought Bryce with her, and they get on a plane to Siberia. So it's Lara, Powell, Pims, Daniel Craig, because I can't remember his character's name, so I'm just going to call him Daniel Craig throughout this.
That's fine.
Alex West, I think it is.
The Illuminati and Bryce, who all the way through is complaining that his arse has gone to sleep. I'd quite like to see a spin-off. You know, sometimes how on the DVD they do little shorts or whatever, just a spin-off of how did she get this guy? Where did he turn? I thought that she was his brother initially. He was her brother initially when I first watched it, and then I realised that that's not in the games. And it's Noah Taylor, who's in a lot of films and is very, very sort of lauded actor. And this is one. There's a few films he's done where it's like, oh, this is so he can afford to do something else that doesn't pay well, isn't it?
He's actually quite similar to his character in Edge of Tomorrow in this film.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I think the thing he's probably one of the most famous things is the tech support in Vanilla Sky.
Yeah.
So they all arrive in Siberia. There is a slightly, I would say 90s-ic scene, but early 2000s scene where Bryce is talking to one of the Siberians in a very like, hello, sausage, egg and chips sort of way. Where he's like, we take all dogs. We give you mucho greenback. And I thought it was going to reveal that he speaks English, but he doesn't. He just smiles, takes the money and gives them the dogs.
Yeah, I think I'd have been more comfortable if one of the baddies had spoken as condescending as that. Yeah. Whereas he's supposed to be a goodie. He's supposed to be like the lovable nerd. Yeah. And he's not particularly lovable there. He's a bit cunty.
He never gets out of his trailer, so he doesn't know how the world works.
Yeah. I'm a little surprised. I mean, it maybe didn't make sense for the plot that they didn't bring Hillary. Hillary would have been interesting, but I think he would have probably been a bit too Rimmer.
Yeah.
If it was him trying to converse with the Siberians to negotiate some dogs.
He's back sweeping up the devastation in the mansion, though. That's what he's up to at the moment, probably.
Oh, that would have done it. They just kept cutting back, and he's still sweeping up from the one incident that's trashed the place.
That would have been so funny. Like 3 or 4 5-second cuts where he's just got a broom, and then he's got a mop, and then he's got a dust. That would have been fucking great.
Someone's got to do the admin on these things.
Complaining that she doesn't hire any more staff.
It's just Hillary. That would have been funny.
Massive house, and he has to deal with it all.
Yeah. So then we see them going out on boats out into. I mean, this is all shot on location, so it looks really nice. Like they've shot them going out into the Arctic.
Those vehicles called ducks, aren't they? The amphibious
tank sort of things, aren't they? They're basically a boat with tractor tyres. They go into the dead zone, so Bryce's computer stops working, which made me think, what do you bring him for in the first place?
Why is he here?
Good point.
And then as they pull up, they're all set to go. They do some husky riding, which is an excuse for one comedy for Bryce to be riding in one and being thoroughly uncomfortable, which I still think would have been quite funny if it was Hillary driving the thing. I just want Hillary to just be like super good at everything.
The thing I didn't understand about the dead zone is that it stops the vehicles from moving, but that's like a chemical reaction. So it's not really it is technological, but it's not in this. It's not in the same way. If you set off an EMP, it wouldn't necessarily break your engine, or would it?
It's in the wibbly wobbly timey wimey thing, but just with power.
That's the thing. It's an action film. Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey, set pieces. I'm happy. I realise we're on a podcast where we critically analyse shit, but I'm a bit crap at doing that for action films because I just love them because they're just so gratuitously naff with cool shit going on.
Yeah. This is the thing. It's like we are like milking dry something that hasn't got that much milk in, to be fair. But it is. This is the thing. I know what you're laughing at, and yeah. But this is the thing: it is a lot of set pieces. Like in this bit, we are going into. I'm guessing what's a studio set now is them riding the Huskies through tunnels. We see the establishing shots of Lara, Powell, and Daniel Craig. And the Huskies, who look like they're having the time of their life, like, this is great. Yeah. Also, they've all got never-ending light bars, which don't fail at any point, which is rare for a 2000s action film.
True.
Yeah, I remember I watched the director's commentary for this, because Tomb Raider was one of the first DVDs I got. I remember I got my PS2 at Christmas, and I got 3 DVDs with it, technically. It was the Mummy 2-pack, so it had the Mummy and the Mummy Returns and this. So I remember just eating my way through the extras on every DVD that I had at the time because, I was at high school and had loads of time, plus this was this new thing. And I watched the director's commentary of this after watching the Mummy director's commentary where Stephen Summers was really fun. Simon West, kind of boring. So I didn't have the same experience. Yeah. But certainly when he's talking about the film, I guess he was maybe better that it was taken off him and re-edited it. So, got this stupid commentary for a film I technically didn't make. But never mind, or didn't edit anyway. But anyway, he was talking about the flares, and they bought like millions of them, and they could only film for a few seconds at a time before they were burned out.
Okay. So yeah, we go through that. They find a bell which Lara rings, which causes a wall to explode, and then here we are, the final set piece, which is kind of like a giant metal octopus with spheres on it.
Yes, that's a very good way of describing it. I approve.
It's the solar system, isn't it? It's just like the sun and then all the planets.
It's like a giant diorama of all the planets that are going to move and eventually all line up. So yeah, you see these kind of like weird ripples in the air, and they send a dog at it to see what it is. And I was like, you can't kill a dog, because you see the dog leap, and then it turns into a sort of skeleton. It strips all the way down to the bone, which leads to one of the only swear words in the movie of Daniel Craig in his American accent going, "Holy shit!" But then when he comes out the other side, the dog's perfectly fine,
which is good.
It is good. Yeah, you don't kill the dog, especially in the early 2000s.
I just don't like it. I don't like it when the dog dies in films. I'll see 100 people get murderized, but I don't like it when the dog gets hurt.
But this leads to the most casual explanation of something huge, which is Angelina Jolie going, "Oh, it's a time storm. Time is broken here." Like that's a thing. It's as if we'd go like, "Oh, look, it's a waterfall," or this, that, and the other. "Oh, it's a time storm." And she just says it like, oh, it's a thing.
I think you're right. It does seem quite casual that this is the first time she's time travelled. This is the first time they've all time travelled. It's not a world where there's lots and lots of time travelling being a established thing. It's just like, oh, we're time travelling now. Cool.
Yeah, we're all time travelling. We all know what it is. So let's just crack on and start climbing all over this giant thing.
Maybe Lara does it all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Then we get the fact we see the sidekicks have a moment, which is Pims and Bryce are sitting outside again, making me wonder why Bryce was even brought in the first place. Yeah. And they're watching the eclipse happen, which is the thing you're not supposed to do when an eclipse happens, is stare straight at it.
Yeah,
but they are doing.
Was this before that was relatively well-known knowledge? Maybe.
I think so. Yeah.
Plus, action film, people do crazy, impossible stuff all the time. So, staring at the sun, probably not all that outlandish.
So Daniel Craig thinks he knows where the piece is hidden and starts climbing. Also, some of the guys who have also started climbing get knocked off and die.
One guy gets crushed.
Yeah, I think that crush was what really kind of like differentiates this from a B movie, because it is a B movie plot, but B movies are traditionally very, very gory and obviously don't have as much money as was invested in this, but it avoids B movie vibes because it isn't gory. A crush death like that is just perfect for proper gore potential, and they didn't go for that. Yeah, I was still as kind of like about it. It was a nasty death, and you knew it was a nasty death.
It's a 12, isn't it, this film?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but that stuck out. Despite the fact it wasn't gratuitous, it's a really nasty death between two metal cogs. That's yucked at. But, yeah, it definitely impacted me, that particular death, out of everything, I think.
Yeah, it's, I say, another chap gets knocked off and lands, like, bangs his ankles on another thing, so he does a flip on the way down, which, credit to that stunt person, that must have sucked.
Yep.
So then what happens is Lara realises that they're looking in the wrong place. She sees something which she believes is the key hole to getting in. We see a shot of what she's looking at, and I don't know about you two, but you can't actually... It doesn't look like anything. It almost looks like they forgot to do the shot of the section that she's meant to be doing to make it look different from anything else.
There's a few bits like that where Lara just knows stuff and then takes action based on that. That's what happens earlier with putting the clock in the right slot. She just knows that they're looking at the wrong one. So it's one of those, Lara knows everything, we as the audience know nothing, and we'll never get anything explained to us. So we're just supposed to enjoy the ride rather than follow her along and they're working it out.
Yeah, there's no real scene of her having like an intuition thing either. But she climbs on it, and basically she works from the underneath. She puts the clock in the right section, and it sucks her in like a very random CGI kind of, I don't know what you call it, fog? Mist?
Yeah.
It's very Stargate.
And she comes tumbling out. Yeah.
That was the thing that it looked like. It was a bit Stargatey.
Yeah.
And then we don't see what happens inside, and it spits her back out again. And she's got the piece of the triangle of light. So now we have both pieces, and we're about to hit the eclipse. The head of the Illuminati starts doing the big Illuminati speech, which she must have rehearsed, because it's very... I don't know, what's the words I'm thinking of there? It's one of those speeches you don't really knock off on the top of your head, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We've been waiting for this for 5,000 years, and we're now at this moment. I'm going to combine these two pieces any second now, etc.
He may as well be standing there going, hopefully somebody doesn't shoot me before I do this, you know, and Powell says, enough of this twaddle, which I popped for because it's like no one uses the word twaddle in a Hollywood movie. It's great.
Same as smashing.
Yep. And all of the guards turn and shoot the Illuminati guys, so he doesn't get to put the things together. And just at the moment where you see Powell is about to put the two pieces together, nothing happens. and Lara is smiling in another moment of, she knows. We don't know why she knows, or how she knows, but she knows why it's not working.
Yeah.
So Powell realises that something's wrong. So his immediate reaction is to kill Daniel Craig.
Which is savage.
Yeah. Daniel Craig looks legitimately surprised at being stabbed through the heart. And then he falls into the water. Lara Croft goes after him to try and rescue him. And they have one of those... It's a kiss, but it's also trying to breathe air into your lungs. But he's stuck underneath the giant planet octopus, and he can't get out, and he dies.
Sorry, I shouldn't be laughing at someone's death. I'd like to clarify that I was laughing at giant planet octopus rather than someone dying, just to make that clear.
I will be opening up my restaurant, Giant Planet Octopus, in the near future.
Like, oh no, he's dead. He's been in at least 3 scenes. It's a shame.
She sort of mourns for about 30 seconds. She does a bit of a head against the wall, like, no, God, why? And then Powell reveals his plan, which is, if you can use the power of the thing to go back in time... He says, like, I'm pretty sure you've figured out the problem, waving both pieces of the triangle of light. And we still don't know how, but apparently she does. And also, I'm thinking at this point, hasn't the moment where the planets aligned been and gone yet? Because this is taking a while. But basically, he wants her to go back in time, harness the power, and you can get Daniel Craig and your dad back. And she agrees to it. So she asks for a laser sight off somebody's gun, and then she uses it to open the time rift, is probably the only best way of putting it. Why that works, I'm not quite sure. And she throws the clock at it, and in a weird bit of CGI, the clock opens, it's all bits and pieces, and this, that, and the other, and Lara Croft takes a grain of sand out of it, which is from the sands of time, apparently. And I think at this point, it's 3 a.m, the day before the first day of the shooting, and the screenwriter's gone, bugger it, grain of sand.
Not only does she know that the last piece they need is in the clock, she knows exactly what it is, despite having never looked inside this thing before.
Yeah, she drops it onto the triangle of light, and then it cuts to a very random scene of her and Powell running up the Illuminati pyramid and grabbing the triangle of light. She grabs it, and then Powell falls to his doom, or what looks like falls to his doom, and then we are teleported to a tent where John Voight is there, and they have the father-daughter reconciliation, sort of.
She gets closure on that relationship, which is what she's been looking for since she went to see him in the tent that's in the grounds of her house.
Yeah.
Went to see his grave, should I say. Not him, he wasn't there.
But he reveals that he was in the Illuminati, and he just didn't tell her to keep her safe. And the fact that they're both there is, it's not real, it's a time crossing of some kind.
It's not clear, is it?
No, but he is dead, because we saw what happened to him when he got shot. And they have the thing of, why can't I use this power only once to bring you back? And they have, basically, it was, I don't know if you two were feeling this, I was waiting for him to go, but with great power comes great responsibility. And then he gives the speech about, you must destroy the triangle, you must make sure no one can ever use this power. And she has a bit of a cry. Because she's missed her dad. And he gives her the I've always been with you speech. And then they go for a fist bump randomly.
Yeah.
Is there not a flashback where they do the fist bump earlier on, though? It's like a thing that they used to do.
Even if my thing with my mum had been a fist bump, I think if I got to see her one last time, I would want to give her a hug rather than a fucking fist bump.
Yeah.
Lara's too macho for that. That's right.
Speaking of macho, we're about to go into the final thing now. She does go back in time a little bit and appears just before the knife hits Daniel Craig and proceeds to pull it out of the air and turn it round, which causes her to cut open her hand. There's a whole thing where her hands are shaking because she's fighting against time. Everybody else is paused. It's just her that's moving. And she turns the dagger round. The eclipse is over. This is a bloody long eclipse for plot purposes. And everything goes back to its right time, basically. And the thing I like as well, you see the triangle of light and it's spinning in the air like a video game bonus would.
That's actually, yeah, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
I think that's a nice little reference. Yeah.
But she blows it up, time is restored, and the knife goes into Powell instead of into Daniel Craig. So Daniel Craig's alive.
Hooray.
Hurrah.
Hooray for this character created for the film rather than taken from the video games that we're supposed to care about, even though they haven't really established how close they were. Hooray!
And may or may not be a villain, they're not clear on it. Don't know.
All of the soldiers immediately give up and leave. All of the baddie soldiers. Pims and Bryce come in with machine guns for no reason. And immediately they turn around to leave because the cave is starting to fall down. But as they're leaving, Powell pulls out her father's pocket watch with a picture of her inside and tells her that he begged for his life when he killed him in an attempt to get him to come back. And she does come back. Again, good bastard. Ian Glenn.
Definitely good bastarding.
Yeah. But the fun bit I like about this is it was like, you're about to die, mate. You've got a knife in the heart, which he pulls out.
That's not wise.
Yeah, but he springs to his feet and he's got a gun, and she's got two guns because she's Lara Croft. And then we get the big fight scene, even though he's just taken a knife to the heart.
Yeah.
No problem. No problem at all. Just a flesh wound.
And it's not like you can say, it went into his body armor or anything. You see him pull it out and it's covered in blood.
He still has some health
Yeah.
left, though,
Yep.
so he's fine.
So we're into the boss battle, and I mean, it's a very standard boss battle for these things. He kicks her, she's down. He actually acknowledges the knife thing by just like moving his shoulder a bit, like, oh, that came a bit keen. You know, it's just kind of... But when he goes to do his knife trick, that's the beginning of the end, and Lara starts to really kick his arse. Oh, and puts her thumb into his knife wound, which is just a nice little brutal bit before she delivers the killing blow to the throat, and he's dead.
Hooray!
Huzzah! So she takes back the pocket watch and runs out just before the tomb falls in on everything. And they all go home for tea.
Basically, yeah. And then there's Basement Jacks.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty spectacular, the destruction of the set. It does look like... Well, I mean, it looks like a model, or it does look pretty real.
Well, it was an entire practical set, and then when it came to destroying it, they just did that. They just destroyed it.
That's good. I do like when they destroy a set, because you're going to have to do it anyway. So in something like this, you may as well just blow it up.
And apparently with the riding through the caves to escape, basically they only did that once, but they left all the cameras on it. So it was taken from multiple angles, and then they just stitched it together to make it look like she's going a far distance.
Yeah, so she runs away, does the thing of it's all falling down, and she just manages to miss it all. And then she comes to the dogs. But the sled is broken, but that doesn't stop Lara Croft Tomb Raider. She basically skids on her shoes, being pulled along by the huskies all the way through the caves. It is a fun action sequence. And it's quite nice to see the dogs get their moment as well. Although she's loving it.
Every dog has its day.
Exactly. You see the shots of her face, and she is loving it. You don't actually see her escape. The next thing you see is it cuts back to Croft Manor.
Yeah.
It just goes back, and we're done. We're back at the house, and of course back to Chris Barrie.
Yeah, it's nice to have a little bit of Chris Barrie to finish the film as well, because that's kind of why we were here. But I stayed because there was good action.
She wears a dress to put flowers on her dad's grave as well, to be more ladylike, to complete that arc, if you can call it that.
Yeah, and Chris Barrie does the butler carrying a tray, perfect drop. It's interesting as well because she kind of goes past him, and he does have the look of "you look beautiful," but it's more in a prideful guardian way, and that's quite nice. I thought that he kind of gets what he wants, sort of, because she tells him to shut up basically when she walks past him. But it's a nice one that he comes back to, and I think that he's made so much out of so little.
Yeah, and I think the kind of outcry for more Hillary, you can understand why, because there really is a good rapport between the characters and or the actors. There's definitely a relationship that's quite charming between them.
Yeah. And then it's all wrapped up with she comes back in the dress, which is a good moment. They take a picture of her, and she looks really annoyed that they've done that. But then the robot comes in from the start. Bryce has got it fixed. The robot's called Simon as well from the beginning, which I'm guessing is because the director's called Simon. And Chris Barrie's there with a silver platter, and underneath the tea towel is the two guns. And we go back into... she pulls the guns, ready to go, and we're out. The film's gone. Cue the U2.
Brilliant. Do you know what? We have taken it apart, and it makes no sense. Its plot is diabolical, but I'll be damned if I didn't really enjoy it.
Yeah, it was really good fun. I'm looking forward to doing the second one.
Yeah, we should do the second one, definitely.
I don't think I've ever seen the second one all the way through. I know I've seen bits of it, but I don't think I've seen it from start to finish.
I've not seen it at all.
I don't think I've seen it either, but they are both on the BBC iPlayer. So, they're dead easy to watch if you are British.
They must have been on the BBC recently then.
Well, I think it's because they're linked to the Beeb, because you can watch them for a year on the Beeb at the moment. So I think because the BBC had some kind of investment in it, it's kind of like having one of their own films on the iPlayer.
Usually when something airs on BBC One or whatever, they, like if it's a film, they'll have it on iPlayer for a while afterwards, won't they?
Yeah, but these are on for longer than that. They're on for a good while.
Okay.
Have we missed anything?
Yeah, well, I think the reason they never made a third one is just what we've said. It's like, yeah, we've never actually seen it or not seen all of it. I think there was no interest by the time the second one came out.
Yeah, apparently there was plans for a third one, but Angelina Jolie went, I'm kind of done.
Right.
Which is a shame, and then nothing happened until was it 2018? Yeah, 2018 reboot. So it was a good long time before 15 years. So it was 15 years before they did it again.
Which is a surprise. You would have thought it'd been quicker than that, really.
It's more video game movies sort of fell out of favour, and no one was really interested in adapting them as well. So you had the Resident Evil movies that kept coming out, and I know they're not good, but I like the Resident Evil movies. Ian Glenn is also in some of them, funnily enough.
Yeah, playing a fairly similar role, I believe.
Good bastard.
Yeah, good bastard. Thing is about Ian Glenn as well, he does, as a Doctor Who fan, he turns up in two of the very popular episodes, which is the Silence in the Library, where we first meet the Weeping Angels. He turns up in that.
He's a monk or something, isn't he? He's like a...
And he's really good in that as well. He's just a very good actor, and he's got a great voice.
He's Bruce Wayne in Titans as well.
Yeah, so he was a good choice for baddie in this, but he does get let down a bit by the fact that the plot's wafer, not even crisp thin. But I am very interested to watch the second one, and then I'm kind of interested to watch the reboot to see if they did more plot in the reboot, if you know what I mean. Just like, let's actually do more of a plot on this one.
The reboot does have more plot, yeah. I would say it's pretty middle of the road in terms of films. It's one of those, I feel like you could have done more here quite easily. Yeah, Alicia Vikander is very good in it, though. I think she was a really good choice to play that type of Lara Croft. Because let's not forget, there's been effectively 3 versions of her in the video games. The PlayStation era stuff, then the first reboot, which actually there's a remake of the first Tomb Raider in amongst those 3 as well. And then you've got the second reboot, which is the gritty survivalist type situation.
It's odd because where I work in a sort of independent cinema place. We do have Tomb Raider Day, because where I'm from is Derby, where Tomb Raider essentially was originated. There's a road here called Lara Croft Way.
Brilliant.
And the most recent one was celebrating the Angel of Darkness, which anybody who does know, like, say, obviously Craig just giggled there, just like, didn't that one kill it off for a good while? But there was a lot of things about, no, it's better than you think, and everyone there who does play games is like, don't think it is, you know.
No, it's who says it's better than you think? It isn't. I got it for like £12 or something out of a bargain bin in Asda, I think it was, and I couldn't get past the first set of jumps because the controls were so bad. So after half an hour, I just turned it off, and then I've never been back to it. I have watched Twitch streamers try and play it.
Oof, right.
And I think that people managed to adapt to its crappy control system, and they're able to get through it. And people like a challenge, so it has been speedrun and all that stuff, but it's garbage. It's just hot garbage. There is a male character in that who might be a bit inspired by the Daniel Craig character in this, though. I don't know if they've got the same name.
I met the guy, because they obviously, whenever they do these things, they get a lady to cosplay as Lara Croft, and people can have the picture taken with them. And on the Angel of Darkness day, they did have a chap there cosplaying as somebody else. But he looked more like Bryce in this than the Daniel Craig character. He seemed to know who it was, but I had no idea.
Yeah, you just switch to a male character at certain points throughout the game. Yeah. That's all I know. I don't know who he is or what his deal is.
Huh. I genuinely thought that Lara Croft was always Lara Croft in the video games. So
that's the only time you switch to another.
Well, I've had a lot of fun doing this, and I hope you two have too. Craig, where can people find you on the internet?
Oh, where can they find me? Well, on the We Made This network, I am currently setting up shop at We Are Starfleet, which is the currently Strange New Worlds podcast, talking about Star Trek Strange New Worlds, among other things. And I'm there with the other three co-hosts, Mike, Ashley, and Ian. We talk about episodes of Strange New Worlds, so that's my main home on the We Made This network at the moment. And personally, I can be found under Neil Before Blog. So that's neilbeforeblog.co.uk. It's on Facebook and Twitter, at least as long as Twitter exists, which may not be for much longer. Thank God. Good riddance. let it die, etc. But you can find it on there. Basically, it's a review site that does analytical reviews of things like currently Secret Invasion, Strange New Worlds, funnily enough, the odd film, stuff like that. And there's an attached podcast. We do a monthly news roundup. We talk about nerdy stuff like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Spider-Verse, etc. So loads there. And as alluded to earlier, my personal handle is Nemesis4909 on Twitter, which wasn't a Star Trek reference initially, it was a Resident Evil reference initially. So video game and Star Trek have been discussed on this very podcast, and my username aligns to both.
And Carl, what about you?
You can find me on Shipwrecked and Comatose, the Red Dwarf podcast.
It's a good podcast, that.
It is a good one, isn't it? On the We Made This podcast network. Away from that, you can find me at I Am Mr. Carl on most things, Instagram, that. I'm on Threads. So yeah, join me on Threads. Add Mark on Threads and make him have to do some threads because he's really not happy about having to join.
Don't want to go on Threads. Also, this timestamps when we did this fucking podcast, which I didn't want to do. A pox upon the pair of you. If you're looking for me, it's at Mark Adams HC on Twitter and Instagram. Not Threads. Fuck off.
He's on Threads. He is on Threads.
I am on Threads, but I don't want to be. Also, if you like the Chucky films and teleseries, I do a podcast about that. But you probably know that because I've said it a lot of times. At Chucky Vision on only Twitter. I'm not on Threads for that. So thank you very much for joining us for another episode of Shipwrecked and Comatose. And until next time,
I'm going to have to take a cold shower now.
Shipwrecked and Comatose, a Red Dwarf podcast, was created and produced by Mark Adams and Kurt North. You can find us on Twitter at Red Dwarf Pod, and we are part of the We Made This podcast network.
Are you a fan of the Marvel Universe?
Can you tell your Kang from your Doctor Doom?
Well, if so, boy, do we have a podcast for you.
Podcast 616 is the We Made This Network's long-running Marvel podcast, and it's under new management.
We're your hosts, Ashley Thomas
and Hugh McStay.
And together, we are going to lead you every step of the way through the Marvel Cinematic Universe's upcoming multiverse saga.
Everything from She-Hulk to Avengers Secret Wars will be covered on the podcast in the kind of detail that would make a Wikipedia article blush.
We're going to have some detours into the wider Marvel world where we'll look at non-MCU projects dating all the way back to Marvel's origins in the groovy, funky 60s and all the way up to the birth of the greatest franchise in cinema history.
And we'll be joined on our adventure by a roll call of guests so impressively knowledgeable that they'll make the Avengers themselves look clueless by comparison.
So if you like your opinions sharper than Wolverine's claws,
or takes hotter than the Human Torch's underpants,
then get Podcast 616 in your ears as a matter of urgency.
You'll love it 3000.
Podcast 616. Disassemble.